Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from Canto 6, Divine Protection, Chapter 18, Goddess Diti vows to kill King Indra. So we have just finished in the previous chapter, chapter 17, all about the pastimes of King Chitraketu and how wonderful they were. And in the last chapter, chapter 17, Parvati cursed King Chitraketu. And now let us begin a new chapter. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tamham vande Shri Gurum Dinataridam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Chapter 18, verses 1 to 8. Shukadev said, Aditi's remaining 8 sons are Savita, Bhaga, Dhata, Vidhata, Varuna, Mitra, Indra, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Urukrama, who took the form of dwarf. So in the last chapter we finished that Sutta Goswami said that he has already spoken about Aditi's first 4 sons. They were Vivaswan, Aryama, Pusha, and Twashta. And now Shukadev will tell about the other 8 sons. Parikshit became intrigued. The Lord took the form of a dwarf. Why? Verses 9 and 10, Shukadev said, the pastimes of Urukrama, who is also renowned as Vamandeva, are most uncommon. I will tell you more about why he took birth as Kashyap and Aditi's son, as well as his qualities and great power in a little while. For now, I want to describe the sons born to Kashyap and Diti. Her lineage is the demon race known as the Daityas. However, 2 great devotees also took birth among her descendants, Prahlad and Bali. Verse 11, her eldest sons were the powerful Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, who were worshipped by the Daityas and Danavas, the descendants of Diti and Danu. Verses 12 and 13, Hiranyakashipu married Kayadhu, a descendant of Danu who had 4 sons, Samhalada, Anuhlada, Hlada, and Prahlada. So the other sons of Prahlad Maharaj were Samhalada, Anuhlada, and Hlada, and 1 daughter Sinhika, who later married Viprachitti and became the mother of another powerful demon, Rahu. Verse 14, on one occasion Rahu disguised himself as a god to drink nectar. When he was recognized, the Lord severed his head. Kayadhu's first son, Samalada, married Kriti, and their son was the demon Panchjana. Verse 15, Kayadhu's second son, Hlada, married Dhamani and had 2 sons by her, Vatapi and Ilvala. You may have heard that Vatapi took the form of a ram, and Ilvala cooked and served him to Agastya to eat. Verses 16 to 18, Kayadhu's third son, Anuhlada, married Surya and begot 2 sons by her, Bashkala and Mahisha. Her 4th son, Prahlad, had only 1 son, Virochan, whose son was Bali, a highly exalted personality who I will speak about more later. He married Ashana and they had 100 sons, the eldest of whom was King Bana. Bana was great worshipper of Lord Shiva, so much so that he became a favorite of the god, who even now always protects him and his city. Verse 19, Diti also had 49 sons whom Indra elevated to the position of gods. They are the Maruts, none of whom had any sons. Verse 20, Parikshit was curious, my dear Lord. Diti's other sons were demons. Surely the Maruts were tainted with the same atheistic mentality as their brothers. How is it that Indra made them gods? Did they perform some extraordinary pious activity? A murmur ran through the listening sages. Many were nodding their heads at Parikshit's questions. Verse 21, Parikshit smiled, my dear Brahmin, great soul, I and all these sages present are eager to know about this. Kindly explain the reason. Verse 22, Shukadev appeared very pleased. You ask an excellent question which will uncover many essential topics. Listen and I will explain everything. Verses 23 to 24. Hot tears of grief and anger streamed down Diti's face as she restlessly paced up and down her chambers. Her intimate maidservants glanced worriedly at each other. All their attempts to pacify her had been in vain. She was absorbed in her own thoughts. Why had Vishnu killed both her sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu? It was surely Indra's fault, envious of others and attached to his own sense gratification. That cruel and hard-hearted god was intolerant of anyone who rivaled his power. Surely he had convinced Vishnu to kill her sons. She paused her pacing. I must find a way of killing Indra, she muttered under her breath. Only then will I find peace. One of her maidservants overheard her mistress. How can you say such a thing? Diti turned angrily on her. Why not? The servant bowed her head and spoke respectfully. My lady, it is hardly my place to instruct you, but Indra is the king of the gods, Krishna's representative. He is also your nephew. Is it right to desire his death? Verse 25, Diti huffed loudly and turned away. After death, our material bodies are eaten by worms, turned into stools of carnivores, or become ashes. This is true even for the great kings, including Indra. Therefore, anyone who kills others to protect his material body does not know the actual interest of life and is destined for hell. Verse 26, she dismissed her maidservants. Leave me now, I need to think. Alone in her quarters, she continued to pace and mutter to herself under her breath. Considering himself immortal, Indra has become arrogant. Someone needs to cut down his inflated pride. Suddenly her eyes lit up. I will find some means to have a son powerful enough to punish him. Verses 27 to 29. She thought of her powerful ascetic husband King Kashyap. If she satisfied him, he could grant her anything, even the boon of a son who could kill Indra, tidying her hair and ornaments and decorating her face with cosmetics. Diti set off to find Kashyap, who sat absorbed in meditation by the river bank. As he sat under the scorching sun, she gently fanned him with the yak-tail fan. At night, when he continued his meditation in the severe cold, she made a fire to warm the chilly night air. She served her husband ceaselessly and without complaint for a week, after which time he rose from his meditation. She gathered fruits and fetched river water, then served them to Kashyap with a loving smile. After he had refreshed himself, she invited him to lie down on a bed of soft leaves and gently massaged his feet and legs until all fatigue left his body. In this manner, for several months, Diti ceaselessly served her husband, always anticipating his desires and fulfilling them without being asked. With service, love and humility, and with smiles and affectionate glances, Diti attracted Kashyap's mind and brought him under her control. Although he was a learned scholar, he never questioned her motives. Obliged by her selfless service, he said, Tell me what you desire, dear lady. Diti shyly looked away as she continued to massage Kashyap's feet. I only hope to please you. Verse 30. Kashyap lay back, enjoying the feeling of Diti's soft hands, firmly the soles of his feet. My beloved wife, in the beginning of creation, no one had any material attachment, nothing. Noting this, Lord Brahma created woman from the better half of a man's body, knowing that women would capture men's heart. Diti glanced down shyly and continued pressing his feet with renewed enthusiasm. Verses 31 and 32. The powerful sage sat up and gently cupped her face in his hands. O beautiful and faultless goddess, I am most pleased by your service. You may ask me from me any benediction you wish. If a woman pleases her husband, she can attain any desire without difficulty, whether in this life or the next. I believe with all my heart that nothing is impossible for you, as you are a powerful sage, said Diti. But surely not every husband can fulfill his wife's desire. Verses 33 and 34. My dear wife, a woman should see her husband as the best of gods. When men worship the gods as their Lord's representatives, it is Lord Vasudev in their hearts who receives their worship and fulfills their desires. Similarly, when a chaste woman sees her husband as Vasudev's representative, the Lord accepts her service and fulfills her desires. Verse 35. Therefore, my beautiful, slender-waisted wife, all conscientious women who desire their own benefit should chastely and devotedly serve their husbands, seeing them as Krishna's representative. Diti smiled sweetly at her husband, glancing at him with adoring eyes, her eyes swelling with warmth. Kashyap spoke in a choked voice. Verse 36. My dear gentle wife, because you have worshipped me with great devotion, considering me Krishna's representative, I shall reward you by fulfilling your desires, which are unobtainable for an unchaste wife. Verse 37. Diti turned her face toward her husband and looked at him with tear-filled eyes. My lord, my only sorrow is that my sons are dead. This grief torments my heart. Kashyap nodded sympathetically. I do not have the power to bring them back to life, but I will happily unite with you and give you more children, my dear beautiful wife. Diti's expression hardened. Looking her husband straight in the eyes, she said, My lord, if you want to give me a benediction, I ask you for an immortal son who can kill Indra. Kashyap released her hands. What? Kill Indra? Why would you want to kill Indra? Diti's face screwed up in sorrow and tears ran down her cheeks because he induced Vishnu to kill my sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Verse 38. Kashyap held his downcast head in his hand. Alas, I face a most dangerous situation. If I agree to your proposal, the sin of killing Indra will burden me. Diti stared at her grief-stricken husband. If you agree, why if? Have you not already given your word to fulfill my desire? Verse 39. Kashyap stood up and walked about, absorbed in thought. From time to time, he glanced angrily at Diti and upbraided himself for being overly attached to material enjoyment and thus becoming too attracted to the illusory energy in the form of his wife. What a wretched person I am! I will surely go to hell. Fearing her husband's displeasure, Diti wept. Verse 40. Kashyap sighed. Why blame Diti? She had simply acted according to her feminine nature. The onus of responsibility fell on him. As a man, he should have shown better discernment. Shame on me for not controlling my senses. Verse 41. He continued to pace sometimes as he processed his thoughts. A woman's face was beautiful like a blossoming flower in autumn, and she speaks sweetly, but her heart was sharp like a razor blade. A man should know better than to trust a woman. Verse 42. The sage berated himself as he strode back and forth. Why had he made a promise to satisfy Diti's desire no matter what? He clenched his fists. What a complete fool he had been, only to secure her own interest. Does a woman treat a man as if he was dear to her? In fact, she does not love anyone. People think of women as pious. Actually, they have no scruples and will kill anyone if it suits their interest. Verse 43. Anyway, what was done could not be undone. He had promised to give her any benediction of her choice, and he would not violate his word. Yet he could not be a party to Indra's killing. After some thought, he came upon a suitable solution. He would instruct Diti in such a way that by following his stipulations, she would become a Vaishnav and give up her heinous desire to kill Indra. Verse 44 and 45. Still annoyed and condemning himself, he said, My dear wife, I will teach you how to observe devotional principles. If you vow to strictly follow these principles for at least 1 year, you will surely get a son who will kill Indra. However, if you deviate from the vow, your son will be Indra's friend. Verse 46. Diti let out a sigh of relief. She would not swerve 1 inch. Soon Indra would suffer for what he had done. She knelt with joined palms before her husband. Mighty Brahmin, I vow to abide by the principles you teach me. Please clearly instruct me what I should and should not do. Verses 47 to 54. My dear wife, you must refrain from harming or being harsh toward any living entity. with your body, words, or thoughts, and do not speak lies. He then gave her detailed instructions how to keep herself clean, who to associate with and who to avoid, how to dress, how to adorn herself, and what to eat and drink, and how to go out in public and how to act at home, how to rest and how to engage in her daily duties, and whom to worship. My dear wife, during your pregnancy you must also worship me and offer me prayers. You should always think that I have entered your womb as your son. These principles I have taught you are called Pumsavana. Follow them faithfully for at least 1 year, and you will give birth to a son destined to kill Indra. But if there is the slightest discrepancy from what I have instructed, your son will be Indra's friend. Verse 55, Diti bowed at her husband's feet. I shall do everything according to your instructions. At the proper time for her conception, Diti duly adorned herself and decorated her quarters. With great happiness and firm resolve to observe the vow, she accepted her husband's embrace and became pregnant. Verse 56, news of her vow soon reached Indra's court. What? He exclaimed on hearing word from his minister. You say that my dear aunt Diti is plotting my death? In effect, yes, my lord. Her husband has instructed her to observe the devotional principles of Pumsavana for 1 year. She is currently pregnant, and if she successfully completes her vow, the son she bears will one day kill you. That's it. Kashyap said, no other condition. Not that we know of, my lord. I must find some way of thwarting her. After all, the first law of nature is self-preservation. He sat in thought for some minutes, then sighing, he said, I will have to go to her ashram. By staying close to her, I will find an opportunity to make her break her vow. Good plan, Lord, but do you think she will allow you to remain close to her? I will tell her that as her nephew I desire to serve her. I doubt she will turn me away, as that would break her vow. Verse 57, Indra went at once to his aunt's ashram. Constrained by her vow, she welcomed him graciously. Indra, this is a surprise. What brings you here? Indra touched Diti's feet. My revered aunt, I long to attain the piety of service to my elders. I notice you are worshipping Lord Vishnu. By assisting you, I too may attain devotional piety. I will daily bring you everything you need for your worship: flowers, fruits, roots, kindling wood, kusha grass, leaves, sprouts, earth, and water. I will fetch everything at exactly the time you require it. Day and night Indra waited on Diti. When there was some important universal matter, his chief minister would come to her ashram to consult Indra. After many weeks, his minister spoke to him in a solitary place. O king of the gods, why do you remain here engaged in menial service to your aunt? If you wish to serve her, and send some Apsara girls. We need your presence in Amravati. As we know, Amravati was Indra's capital. Verse 58, if I am to break my aunt's vow, I need to stay here just like a deer hunter disguises himself the deerskin so that he can get closer to his prey. I have assumed the guise of a faithful servant so that I may remain close to my aunt and find some way to destroy her embryo. Indra slumped his seat and cradled his head in his hands. The minister asked, what is wrong, my lord? Verse 59, I am sick and with anxiety. I have watched her like a hawk for several weeks now, and I can detect no fault in her practice. She scrupulously follows Kashyap's instructions. Be patient, Lord. Surely Vishnu will help. Verses 60 to 62, the minister left, and Indra continued to live in Diti's ashram, observing her diligently. Then one evening, Diti, who had grown thin because of her strict practices, neglected to wash herself after eating as she had vowed and fell asleep during the evening twilight. Verses 61 and 62, seeing this transgression, Indra, who has all the mystic powers, entered Diti's womb while she was asleep. So previously we have read between verses 60 and now it's 61 to 62. Seeing this transgression, Indra, who has all the mystic powers, entered Diti's womb while she was asleep. With his thunderbolt, he cut her glowing golden fetus into 7 pieces. To his astonishment, instead of the child dying, 7 living fetuses were created, and they all cried. Indra panicked. "Shh, be quiet. You'll wake her up." Simultaneously, he cut each of the 7 fetuses into 7 again. Verse 63, each segment became another live fetus, and all 49 babies cried, "Dear Indra, please do not hurt us. We are your brothers, the Maruts. Why are you trying to kill us?" Verse 64, Indra was dumbfounded. He lowered his thunderbolt, and said, "You are my brothers. In that case, you have nothing to fear from me." Parikshit shook his head. "That can't be possible." "What is not possible?" "That the fetus did not die but became 49 live children." Verse 65, Shukadev raised his eyebrows. "My dear King Parikshit, Ashwathama's Brahmastra weapon destroyed your body when you were in your mother's womb. Yet Lord Krishna entered for womb and saved you. Why then do you think that by Krishna's mercy Diti's fetus, even though cut into 49 pieces, could not be similarly saved?" Verses 66 and 67, "Nothing is impossible for one who pleases Krishna. One who worship even once pleases Krishna enters the spiritual world in a body resembling Vishnu's." Diti strictly worshipped the Lord for almost 1 year, although her other sons were all demons. Because of Diti's staunch devotional service, not only did the Lord ensure the 49 Maruts were born, but by his grace they became equal to the gods. Parikshit lowered his head. "Forgive my doubt. Of course you are right. Please tell me what happened next." Verses 68 to 70, when Diti opened her eyes, she saw Indra by her bedside, looking very nervous. On either side of him stood 49 young boys, each as brilliant as fire. "Indra, what are you doing here? Who are these boys?" She put her hand to her womb and realized she was no longer carrying a child. "What has happened to my child?" Indra placed his palms together and addressed her most respectfully. "My dear aunt, these 49 boys are your sons." Each Marut respectfully touched Diti's feet and received her embrace, while they each touched Indra's feet and he embraced them. Diti smiled. "I am very pleased to see the loving friendship between you and my sons." Indra sighed in relief. He had been worried about how she would react when she saw her sons' friendship with him. Her devotional service to Krishna had obviously purified her heart. Verses 69 to 70 and 70, Diti's expressions turned into a frown. "Still I am confused, my dear son Indra. You must know that I followed this difficult vow to get a son who was powerful enough to kill you and your 11 brothers. Tell me the truth. How is it, though I prayed for 1 son, I now have 49? Verse 71. Indra lowered his head in shame, but he didn't want to risk the consequences of lying to his aunt. He swallowed. "Well, unfortunately, I am grossly blinded by material desires, and I sometimes lose sight of religion." Diti smiled compassionately. "Yes, I know. So tell me what happened." Indra shuffled from foot to foot. "When I found you were observing a great vow and why I came here intending to find some fault in your practice. When I couldn't find any, I entered your womb while you slept and cut the embryo to pieces." Diti's eyes grew wide. "You what?" Verses 71 to 73. I, he stammered. "I cut your embryo into 7 pieces, but all 7 came alive and cried. I panicked and cut each of the 7 into 7 again. I can now understand that it was by Krishna's grace that none of them died. In fact, I am wonderstruck to see all 49 pieces live as individual boys." Verse 74, he knelt before his aunt. "My beloved mother, this miracle must certainly be a secondary result of your devotional service to Lord Vishnu." Diti said. "Secondary result? What do you mean?" Verses 74 and 75, "You have always wanted many sons, although you never asked the Lord. He has fulfilled your desire because of your devotional service. The primary result of serving Krishna is that he gives himself to his devotee. After attaining him, intelligent people no longer desire material happiness, which is available even in hell. Verses 76 and 77, Indra clasped these feet and placed his head on them. In a choked voice he pleaded, O mother, best of women, please forgive the offenses I have committed against you, for I am a fool, even though I acted inimically by cutting your embryo to pieces because of your devotion. Your embryo did not die, instead 49 sons have been born to you unharmed. Diti rubbed Indra's head. Be peaceful, my dear. I'm not at all angry with you. Rather, I'm pleased. By honesty and humility, you may now return to Swarg with my blessings. The Marut said, Blessed Mother, may we go with our brother Indra? We feel great affection for him and wish to serve him. Diti raised her right hand in blessing. Go in peace, my sons. Indra and the Maruts respectfully circumambulated Diti before departing. Verse 78, Shukadev stopped speaking and closing his eyes, took several deep breaths of the still night air. Parikshit sat patiently awaiting him to continue. Peering through the darkness at the surrounding sages, were they as fascinated as was by Shukadev's narration? They surely must be. The few he could see in the dim light of the moon and stars sat completely still, their gaze fixed on the boy sage. Slowly opening his eyes, he said, My dear king, I have replied as far as possible to your questions regarding the auspicious birth of the Maruts. What else would you like to know? So this was Shukadev speaking. The sages of the Naimisharanya were astonished. A murmur rippled through this assembly as they discussed Diti's remarkable transformation. Kashyap had intelligently handled that delicate situation. Not only had he saved Indra, but he had also delivered Diti, his wife. Most remarkable was that, unlike Devahuti, the mother of Lord Kapila, the wife of Kardam, Diti had not initially been interested in spiritual elevation. In fact, anger and envy had polluted her consciousness. Maybe they could learn from this history how to counteract the future degradation of women, which would be a prominent and dangerous feature of Kali Yuga, resulting in a breakdown of the social order. Shaunak returned to Sutta, who had been quietly chanting Krishna's holy names, and he waited for them to finish their consultation. Dear Sutta, Shaunak said, is the Pumsavana vow possible for other women or just goddess like Diti? Please tell us more about this vow, which ensures good progeny and elevates those who observe it. Sutta said, I shall gladly repeat all I have heard from Shukadev Goswami regarding this vow. You may then judge for yourself if other women can follow it. So with this brings us to the end of chapter 18. Goddess Diti vows to kill King Indra, and next time we'll be reading the last chapter of this canto, the Pumsavana vow. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.